This is the Gemara in Makkkos, Daf Yomi Beis, rolling on Yud Aleph and Beis. Baruch Hashem, getting these shiurim up in anticipation of another wonderful Yontiv B'siyata D'Shmaya. All the learning should be an incredible Zchus Refuah Shalema for Tinok ben Miriam Ahuva B'Soich Sha'ar Chayli Yisrael. We pick it up 7 lines into the Y lines. Im Ad Shaloi Nigmar Dinoi. Discussing when one leaves Ari Miklat, taught the Mishnah, if the Kohen Gadol dies, if Kohen Gadol dies before there was a Gemar Din and they appoint another Kohen Gadol in his place, then he goes to Galus, then it would be the death of the second Kohen Gadol that would allow him to leave Ari Miklat. Says the Gemara, immediately where do we know this from? Amar of Kahana Damar Kra. He should stay there. Apologies if the sound was a little quiet. Forgot to put on the mic. He should stay there until the Kohen Gadol dies. That is anointed with the holy oil. Says the Gemara, what does it mean that he anoints him? Is he the Reitzeach, the one anointing him? Of course not. Ela zeshen nimshach b'yamav, it means the ones that was anointed in his days, honing in on this detail that if he became Kohen Gadol after the Gemar Din, then he would be the one that his time in Ari Miklat would be dependent upon. My Havle Meven says, I don't understand. What could the new Kohen Gadol have done? We started learning yesterday that at some level the Kohen Gadol is held culpable. Why? Because he could have potentially davened. Someone dies in your generation, in your time, you're at some level responsible. But this Kohen Gadol wasn't Kohen Gadol yet. Says the Gemara, it's true. The case already happened. Then he's appointed Kohen Gadol, but now he still could daven. That maybe somehow the Dayanim will find a way to acquit him. And he did not. Amar Abaye, says Abaye, Naktina, we have a tradition. Nigmar dinai umeis. If there's a psak halacha that he has to go to Ari Miklat, and the person dies before going to Ari Miklat, we put his bones in Ari Miklat, what does it mean to sit in the land? Literally, if he dies before the Kohen Gadol dies, so we see clearly in this right, so not like we just said, but rather he goes to Kivrei Avoisav, the ancestral plot of his parents. Nigmar Dinai, V'nasei Koyin ben Grusha ben Chalutza. Then Pliba Ravami Rav Yitzchak Navcha. Chad Amar Misa Kahuna. Chad Amar Balakuna. What happens if the Kohen Gadol commits a crime? What happens if the Kohen Gadol, he doesn't necessarily commit the crime, but he was established, he was paskind that he's pasul. He's now no longer able to be Kohen Gadol, but this guy needs it to be Kohen Gadol because he's his whole ticket into freedom. Says the Gemara, according to one opinion, that's called the Kilu, he's dead, and therefore the Reitzeach will leave Ari Miklat. According to the other one, no, it's just batal. Says the Gemara, is this a machlemis? Leba plikted the Rav Lezer Rav Yeshua kamifli d'tzanan. 3 lines to the bottom. Ayoymidu makrav al gabi ezveach. V'noida shu ben grusha b'chalutz. If someone is in the middle of the avodah, and while he's in the middle of the avodas, they come, they tell the kohen that he is pasul la avodah. What does he do right now? Rav Lezer Omer called karbanis shikra psulim. All the karbanis that he brought prior are pasul. Rav Yeshua on the last line machsher. Mandamer Mesa Rav Yeshua. According to the opinion that says that if the Kohen Gadol dies, that's like Rav Yeshua that says everything prior was kosher, meaning we assume he had a status of a Kohen Gadol. Now he becomes pasul, so it's as if he died. Mandamer Bala, that is like Rabbi Eliezer. Continues the Gemara. Explains the Gemara as we turn over to Yud Beis and Aleph that no, this is not the same machlokes. Aliba de Rabbi Eliezer, according to Rabbi Eliezer, Kuli Amalei Pligi, we can explain all the shitas. No one argues. Ki pligi, what's the machlekes going to be? Aliba to Rabbi Yeshua. The machlekes is going to be only according to Rabbi Yeshua. Man damar mesa, that's like Rabbi Yeshua, like we just said. Man damar batlad, can come Rabbi Yeshua samwai. Terse baruch Hashem chelo bal diyadav tirtze. Afilu chalolin shebai. Klapi a carbon over there. Rabbi Yeshua says that the pasuk says regarding the avoid the baruch Hashem chelo bal diyadav tirtze, teaching us that afilu chalolin shabai, if they by mistake bring a carbon, the carbon is ratzah, the carbon's accepted. Avalacha, but by us, the din of our miklat, afilu Rav Yeshua will be moidem. We continue. Nigmar dinay v'chulu, 4 lines from the white lines. Amar Rav Yudah Marav shtei tu'ua is Taya Yayav v'baisa shah. Yayav ben Sruya said the Mishnah that even someone like Yayav cannot leave the Arei Miklat. Even an incredible warrior, someone that is seemingly Klal Yisrael needs, if he kills B'shayge, he has to stay in Arei Miklat. Says the Gemara, Yayav ben Tzuria made 2 mistakes. 2 mistakes. Shlomo HaMelech sends Ben Yahu to kill him as a Reitzeach, L'seiv Yanis Yayav Alo Yol Hashem. Yayav runs to the Beis HaMikdash v'yechzek b'karnos HaMizbeach, and he grabs hold of the Kranos, the corners of the Mizbeach. So what was the mistake? 1 second, we just lost a page. The page, not a page. What was the mistake? He thought that by grabbing hold to the horns of Mizbeach, that is going to afford him Ari Miklat. So he made a mistake that only the gag of the Mizbeach gives a refuge. And Tosh in a kolel al mizbeach beis alamim v'utafas mizbeach shel shiloi. Even the din that a mizbeach has a din of an arei miklat explains the Gemara. Yoya made a mistake. It was not any mizbeach. It was only the mizbeach, of course, a beis alamim, a beis hamikdash, whereas he was in the beis hamikdash of Mishkan Shiloi. Abaya Amar says Abaya b'hanami mitzatay. This was also a mistake. That what Tashin a kolel al kayin va'avoide biyadai. If it's a kayin and he's doing the avoide v'uzar haya, and his problem was that he was a zar, so therefore the whole story did not work as well. Amar Reish Lakish on the 3rd wide line. Shalosh 2 is asid sara ishal roy melitais. The ministers of Rome are going to make 3 mistakes. Who are those that are coming from Edom? The garments are stained from Batzra. The pasuk is talking about that HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes from Batzra. His garments are stained. What's going on over here? That the Malach is going to be killed. The city of Batzra, even though it's normally in Alar Miklat, is not going to work for the Malachim. He makes a mistake that only Batzar affords refuge. View different place. Who makes it? And the 3rd mistake was who malach. Ari Mikla only works for human beings. Who explains the Gemara and Ari Miklat. We're not given to Levium for Kvura. These cities only to live, but for Kvura. Meisvei asked more 1 second. Shama Shamte Dirasa Shamte Misa Shamte Kvura. So we say are buried there. Says more, no, you're right. The Reitzeach is buried there. Reitzeach Shaini, the Galber Achmana, but the Levium themselves are not to be buried there. Shem Sheir Kalet, as we learned in the Mishnah, the Tchum is Kailet. Veriminu asked the Gemara, Vayishev Bam, and from there we start now. V'lei b'tchuma. Amar Abaye Lokasha kan likloit kan ladur. That to Kailet works till the Tchum, but to live, they have to live in the actual city. Ladur. You don't live in a sada, you don't live in the area outside the city by the Tchum, so it's pashit. Lo migras sada, lo migras shir, lo yer migrash. So what was the hava mean? Amar Rav Shishla nitzcha ella lemachilais, to the tunnels outside the city that are within the Tchum. Maybe there you can live, and that's the chiddush that no, it only works to save from the Goyal Adam, but not to actually live there. The Reitzeach goes chutz l'tchum, the Mishnah taught us, And now the Goyal Adam meets him. What is the story? Tana Rabbanan v'Reitzach Goyal Adam is a Reitzach. Pasuk says the Goyal Adam, the redeemer, the relative of he who was killed, can kill the Reitzach. Mitzvah biad Goyal Adam. It's a mitzvah in the hands of the Goyal Adam. Ein Goyal Adam, then what? Rishos biad kol adam ve'adam. Every person can take matters in his own hand. Kiva Omer, no. Rishos biad Goyal Adam, but Chol Adam chayavim alav to kill him. My time there is saying glili. Miksiv im ratzach. Rav Kiva miksiv yirtzach. Amar Mar Zotra Bar Tovi Amar Rav. Right there, she had to chotz l'tchamu mat Goyal Adam v'har goy nerag. New shita. Nerag alav. Come on, look, Rav Yisrael glili. Look, Rav Kiva. Because he's clearly holding that the Goyal Adam is not allowed to kill him. And if he does, what happens? He's going to be the one that's chayav misa. Explains the Gemara, Hudam Kaitana, the Tana Velez Oimer. Ad amdu lefnei oida lemishpat. Mata malaymer. What's the pasuk teach? Because fishem v'rotzach Goyal Adam is eretziach. Yochel everything miyat. Tamalaymer ad amdu lefnei oida lemishpat. So we see that it's only until he goes to Bezdin, but not prior. What do they say? Because they clearly argue whom we bailach l'tanya Kiva Omer. Minayin l'sanhedrin. Shra echad sharig zaneva she'in my misin oisai ad sheyamoid bebezdin acher. Till he brings another bezdin v'loymar ad amdu l'fnei ha'idul mishal ad sheyamu bebezdin acher. And that's what he uses this pasuk to teach us. The pasuk is not around to teach us our din about the Goyal Adam. Continues the Gemara, so Rav Kiva both are of the opinion that if the Reitzach leaves the city, the Goyal Adam, the relatives, are allowed to kill him. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, Im Yatsa Reitzach, Im Yatsa Yitzei HaReitzach. Ein li'el b'mezid, if he leaves on purpose, b'shagim, and I ain't tam learn Yatsa become Makkkos. But the Brisa teaches us ask the Gemara, the Brisa seemingly says that if it was b'shoigeg that he left Ari Miklat, then he goes to Galus, and there's no din that you could kill him if he left the city b'shoigeg. Answers Gemara like Kasha, Hakaman Damar, Amrina Dibber Kalash B'nei Adam, Hakaman Damar, Loimina Dibber Kalash B'nei Adam, a famous machlekes. Anytime we have a doubling of a pasuk, do we say that it's teaching us a lesson or no? That's the way the Torah speaks. Amar Abaye, Mistavra, Hakaman Damar Dibber Kalash B'nei Adam. Why? We don't want the end to be more chamer than the tchila. What does that mean? Explains the Gemara. Someone kills originally, what's the halacha? If he killed b'mezid, he gets killed. If he kills b'shay, he goes to galus. So too says Abaye. If he leaves Ari Miklat, it's going to be the same din. Tani Chada, we wrap up part A of the Shiur. We learned in one brisa, a father kills his son by mistake. The other children become Goyal Adam, and they can even kill the father. Tani idach, ein b'nai nasli Goyal Adam. Says the Gemara, perhaps this is our machlekes leimaro seglili v'arav Kiva. Maybe the brisa that says that the other sons are the Goyal Adam, they say glili, who says it's a mitzvah on the Goyal Adam. Since it's a mitzvah to an extent even to the brothers, another opinion to be Rav Kiva to Rishos, that will not extend to the brothers. But Tizra says, either way, Mi Shari, Bat, Vamar Ravuna, Chen Tana, Dvei Rabbi Yishmael, Lacholina ben Nasa Shliach, La'aviv, La'akaisa, La'kalasai, Chutz Mi Mace. It's the only time a child could be a Shliach to kill a father is a case of a Macis. A special dictum of the Torah, not to have mercy on someone who is a mesis, not to have mercy on someone who instigates others avodah zarah. But aside from that, clearly, you cannot. This child can never be the one to kill the father. Eloloi kasha ha bebenoi, says the Gemara, ha beben benoi. The steer is going to be when it's users by a son. The brisa that says that a child could seemingly be a goyel adam is only going to be beben benoi by a grandson. And we continue with a Mishnah on this exact topic, on the topic of the Rotzach leaving Ari Miklat, and what is the status with him? Says the Gemara, what if he doesn't leave, but rather, says the Mishnah on the bottom of Yud Beis Amud Aleph, you have a tree, and the tree is in the tchum, but the branches extend outwards. Or, the tree is outside, says the Mishnah, how do we don? Is this person considered to be in the city or out, in the tchudim or out? Ha'akol hoylech achar hanoif. Everything goes by the knife, everything goes by the branches, both ways, and that's going to be the din, whether we consider this person to be in the tchum or not. Asks the Gemara, Virimini, and this, hopefully these concepts are a little bit familiar. We've had this dinim of naifai in other places. Says the Gemara, Virimini ilan shuaime b'seich atchom seich hapnim, v'naivtei lachotz, or ayomir b'achotz v'naivtei lepnim, if it's opposite the wall towards the inside, then the halacha is kilifnim. It's kilachotz. So says the Gemara, it should be based on where it is facing. And this Mishnah says that the tree is always according to the actual location, not according to where the knife is, like our Mishnah said. Answers the Gemara, Maisar Mikla Karamis, what's your stira? Maiser, you're right, is Bechayma Tali Rachman, and therefore if it's in the Tchum, it's out in the wall without the wall. It's Pashit. But Mikla Bidira Tali Rachmana, and what defines where your dira is, Benoifai Misar Le Bikar Le Misar Le, you can live on the knife and the branches, not on the trunk. That's why it's going to go based on the branches and not the trunk. Says Mara, okay, Varami Meiser Meiser Tessa localized steer and Meister Tani Rishaim Alachachar Knife, Barimikla Alachachar Knife. What do we see? We see that even Klab a Meiser B'Yushalayim, you go after the knife. Amar Avkana Lekasha Ha Rabbi Yehuda V'Ha Rabbanan. This is an old machlekes ready by Meiser, whether we're going to go basar the knife, basar the ikarai, the trunk. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Rabbanan. As we turn over to Yud Beis, Rabbi Yehuda Imer Bim Ma'ara. Says Rabbi Yehuda, if you're in a cave by a ma'ara, then you go by the opening of the cave. If you're in a tree, then it goes by the branches. So Rabbi Yehuda, with regard to Meiser, says we go by the branches. That's Rabbi Yehuda. That's going to be like we said. Well, like our first brisa, whereas the Rabbanan are going to say no, it goes by the trunk. Ask the Gemara 1 second, Imar. The Shama says Rabbi Yehuda gabe Meiser. When did Rabbi Yehuda say his din? Lechumra ikari b'chotz v'neifa b'fnin kihechi da'awad t'b'neifa lo matzi parik. Just like if you go with the branches, you cannot redeem the Meiser sheni b'ikar nami lo matzi parik. But ikari b'fnin v'neifa b'chotz kihechi t'b'neifa lo matzi achol b'loi p'diya, because it's inside Yerushalayim b'ikar nami lo matzach b'loi p'diya. So ask the Gemara, maybe Rabbi Yehuda is not really saying by Meiser it all goes by the branches, but rather he's saying l'chumra loy matzach b'loy p'diya eligabi ari miklat. It says more, wait, b'shlami kari b'chotz v'neifei b'fnim, then kichid b'neifei l'matzi katale, because why? The branches are inside the ari miklat, so you can't kill him. Therefore, I can understand b'ikara and nami the trunk as well l'matzi katale. But in the flip side, says the Gemara, eli kari b'fnim, if the trunk is in the ari miklat v'neifei b'chotz, because he's outside. Why? Because the trunk is inside the tchum. Excuse me. Are you going to tell me Nami Matzikatale because the branches are outside? How could that be? But the trunk is inside and he's by the trunk. So how could it be? It comes out that Rabbi Yehuda is being Mako if you go with the Shita and not being Machmir. So Amar Rava. If he's actually by the trunk, everyone agrees. If he's on the branch and You could kill him from the outside with arrows and whatnot. You're standing outside Ari Miklat. He's on a branch outside of Ari Miklat, and you could shoot an arrow up and kill him. Then you could. What's the whole machlekes? Keep ligi. B'mavi karai dargoi l'noifoi. The machlekes is going to be dafka in a case where the trunk is a ladder for the noifai. That the goyel adam is standing on the trunk to take his sword and kill the reitzach that's on the noifai. So Mar Savar Havi Karai Dargul Noifai. One opinion holds the first sheet holds what Rav Yehuda, the trunk can be used. And therefore, it comes out of Chiddush. The Goyel Adam could, yes, go into the city, step on the trunk to reach up and kill him on the branches because the branch is outside of Ari Meklat. Whereas Umar Savar, Rabbanan no, Lavi Kar Dargul Naifa, that's too far. That's going to be called going into Ari Meklat, and he will not be able to use the trunk as a step stool for the knife. Rav Ashi Amar, my acher a knife. Af acher a knife. Rav Ashi is a different teretz. So what does it mean when it says go by the knife? It means af. Even, not only basar the ikarai, but also basar the knife, and that will answer up the kasha on Rebbe Yehuda. One last shikol Mishnah Gemara hara ba'isa yer gailaf. If someone killed b'shayek, killed someone else, he's in the Ari Miklat, and then he kills someone else. Gailim b'shchuna l'shchuna, he has to go to another shchuna within the Ari Miklat. Uben Levi, if he kills while in Ari Miklat, Gailim me'ir li'ir to different Ari Miklat. Tana Rabbana, where does this didn't come from? Samti l'chamakam v'gaimer v'samti l'cha. What does that mean? B'chayecha, in your Moshe's lifetime, that he'll create some of the Ari Miklat. Makkim, what does that mean? Mimkaimcha, from your place, in a place that the Levium are. Sheyanu Shama, Melamed Sheyisrael, Maglin Bamidbar, that the Yidden had galus even in the Midbar. There was such a concept of Ari Miklat. Lechan Maglin, says the Gemara. In the Midbar, before there's a concept of Ari Miklat, if someone kills B'shageg, where they go to galus? Lemachane Levia, Mikan Amru Ben Levi, Shahara, Gayla Meplach Leplach, Vem Gayla Palchai, Palchai Kaltlai. Then I'll go to, then it works. Amar Avacha Brid Ravika, Mai Kara, Kibir Meklata Yashav Ir Shekoltasai Kvar. That even if he's in the city that he already was, city he was ready in the Galus, that will work. And that's where we learn the din, says the Gemara, that a city that already was Ari Miklat, he'll be able to stay in if he's a Levi. That one more time, Ben Levi Shegoyla Shaharag. He killed Goyla Miplach Leplach. He'll go from city to different city. Bavim Goyla Pilchai. If he went to his own city, to a different neighborhood, it's going to work. Why? And that's what we're learning from the Pasuk to Ben Levi, even go to somewhere within his own city to another town. We'll pick it up from the Mishnah, B'siyata Dishmai.